Thank you for joining us for our high school football preview as we are getting ready for the 2025 season, getting under on Thursday night around the state. Full schedule on Friday and Saturday. I first want to, before we get started, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Herman Lumber Company, Riles Garage and Car Wash, Herman Brothers Meats, Restaurant, Anglers Restaurant, Gordon Contracting, Sluggers Training Facility, Black Bear Crane, Ideal Energy Solutions, Millside Fitness, Amy Gilbert, Associate Broker, Next Home Spirits, and Rowdy's Paving out of Newport. So thank you to all of them. And again, thank you for tuning in. I want to bring in the people that actually know about high school football that are going to join me here tonight. And that is Andrew Hart from Maine High School Football. And that's Bob Beetham from Air. You'll hear him on the mic at Bangor, John Baptist games and everywhere around the state. But first, I want to start with you, Andrew, and I just want you guys maybe to introduce yourself and what you got going on here.
Thank you very much for having me on, Mark. Andrew Hart here from Maine High School Football. Glad to be a part of the show. For those who aren't aware, I am the man behind the site over at www.mainehighschoolfootball.com.
And Bob?
Yes, I'm Bob Beetham. I am the public address announcer for both Bangor High School football and John Baptist football, and looking forward to a great season of high school football, predicting games with Eastern Maine Sports, and trying to win my 8th prediction title this season.
Yeah, you're a dynasty there. So what we're going to do coming up before we go on every class, we're going to have a couple of special guests joining us here shortly. Kyle Gallant, the head coach of Herman, defending Class C North champions, and Coach Danny White. After that, the head coach of the Foxcroft Academy Ponies, the defending Class D North champions. They happen to be meeting this Friday. You can see right here on Eastern Maine Sports. So what we want to do first here before we get going on the rest of the state is kind of touch on this game. It's a big game. It's a when you get two defending champions going at it, it's always a special night, and it's on tonight here this week. Bob, talk maybe a little bit about that matchup.
Honestly, I think it's really a toss-up game. I did get a chance to see Herman Friday night against a very good Bangor team. And then Herman, was certainly very competitive in that game, forced a couple of turnovers in the fourth quarter, got it to 21-14. Bangor scored a late touchdown. But they've gone to an Oklahoma T formation this year. They've got a very good fullback in Justin Largay and a couple good halfbacks in Dylan Yo and Sam Hopkins. So they're going to be pretty much run heavy this year. They fly to the ball defensively, but they're a very good football team. And then obviously, Foxcroft Academy, the tradition up there that they have, Coach Danny White, certainly building, on that legacy up there as well. So I think the game comes down, when you have two really evenly matched teams like that, it's probably going to come down to key turnover, maybe a big special teams play that could decide that up there on Friday night. But that's a great and a lot of really good games to open the season. But that's certainly one of the premier games in Eastern Maine to open up the high school football season this year.
Yeah, Andrew. We both got to this play last year. They obviously want to go one step further. It's going to be a lot tougher for both teams with the reclassifications. Foxcroft moving from D to C. You got other teams, Wells and so on, coming to C. It's really a different look, isn't it?
Oh, definitely is. This is probably going to be one of the most seismic shakeups you're going to see until, I guess, we go back to either the expansion of 8-man or even back to the expansion to 4 classes. You're not seeing a class just change so, drastically. Class C, which last year was under 2 regions, had, if I remember right, as I pull up my notes here, you had, let's see here. You had 6 teams in class in the north. Then you had 5 teams in the south. And if you look at how things shake up, the north is remaining largely intact in C. However, the south is the one that's got the shakeup. Freiburg Academy goes to Class B. Cape Elizabeth goes to 8-man. Brunswick also is going to Class B. All that's left out of the South is Leavitt and York. However, let's look at who else got to happen to move in into Class C from elsewhere. You look at Old Town; they moved up from Class D. You look at Foxcroft Academy, Wells; they both moved up from Class D. Gardner, they dropped down from Class B just because they were kind of on the enrollment line. Greeley, I think I've got 6 here. Greeley, they moved up from the 8-man ranks. Crazy changes. And there was originally a line of discussion early on in the off season to try to have both Class C and Class D remain single table. The 80s, who discussed it out of Class D, decided it was better off to have both North and South. Class C, on the other hand, they opted to go with the single table / single region look.
And, I think I'm counting right. There's 4, Foxcroft, Herman, Wells, and Greeley, 4 defending regional champions in that Class C, huh?
There is, and that is something I don't recall one could ever see at any point past or either recent past or distant past to have that in there. It's going to create some very interesting matchups between defending champions in different regions. The fact that you're seeing the regional champions / state runners up playing in an open game is something you probably wouldn't have really seen were it not for the creative scheduling and this new look on this realignment.
Yeah, and Bob kind of touched on a little bit about the tradition of Foxcroft, and obviously they've won in other classes other than D in the past, so this isn't new to them. But let's go to Herman for a little bit. As I said, we're going to have Coach Gallant joining us in a little bit. He's done a great job building that program, hasn't he, Bob?
Oh, no question. I think certainly the community has really rallied behind football. Football has definitely been a very good fit there, and that's something I'd certainly like to talk to Coach Gallant about too. Is how Herman's really developed into a football community. I think that, you look at, they really don't take a backseat to anybody when it comes to enthusiasm for the game there and just really having community support. Certainly the Friday night atmosphere at Herman is as good as it is anywhere right now.
Well, we got the leader at that crew. I'm going to be joining us right now, and we can talk to him. As we'll get him on the stream. And Coach, thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we were just talking about your community and how they've embraced football. It's been a while, but not really a long time. And you've helped build this program, you and the really quickly.
Yeah, I just think it's, from the start all the way through me, it's been a building block for sure. I say this all the time. It takes a village, and in my opinion, we have one of the best villages around. So kudos to everybody involved, from the town to the community to the admins in the school, the parents, players, family members, and beyond. They're really buying into football, and exciting times here for the Hawks.
We kind of touched on this a little bit before you came on. Definitely a new look Class C. You got Foxcroft coming down. You got them Friday night, a game you'll see. Everybody can see right here on East Maine Sports. Also, there's you got Wells. You got it's a statewide class. It's going to be totally different week to week, isn't it?
Yeah, no, there's pros and cons to looking at this moving forward, right? If you're one of the guys that are people that enjoy the North and South regional things, you probably don't like the statewide. If you're a person that looks back at the North has been kind of dominated by the South as of late in state games for sure. You kind of like the idea of the statewide. For me, and I think my program feels the same way. We just want to play football regardless. So we're excited for the new challenges ahead. We're excited about being able to, keep most of the North in the statewide. And the only thing that I feel is a little odd is that we just don't play Madomic this year in the regular season. So that's different. But outside of that, it's okay for change. And sometimes change is what's needed. And I think the statewide is going to be a really top to bottom competitive league, and we're excited for the challenge.
I got Andrew Hott, sorry, from Maine High School Football here with us tonight. We'll let him kind of chat with you and ask a question or two now. Go ahead, Andrew.
Good evening, Kyle, and thank you for coming on board here. First time we've actually had a chance to meet, I believe, other than at the Lobster Bowl, just briefly. I noticed that, you mentioned that, and it wasn't really something that dawned on me, was the loss of Madomic Valley from your schedule. I got to admit, I was kind of surprised, but then again, with the way the schedule works, changes are inevitably going to happen. It's in there. But at the same time, when I look at your schedule, I see some teams you've probably never met before, and they've created some really interesting matchups. So why don't you kind of tell me some of these games that you're really looking forward to of first-time opponents?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look forward to this week's opponent, FA. I think, a Herman FA rivalry is kind of brewing here. It's good to have them in the league again. You're looking at Wells, right? What a storied, historic program with Coach Roach and those guys. I mean, anytime that you can play Wells, we kind of have a motto here at Herman. We want to play the best football teams in order for us to take a step forward in our program. And I think Wells and FA right off the bat are definitely teams like that.
Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Well, it definitely is. It's interesting, and it seems like you guys are going to have a very, very tough front schedule between, as I mentioned, Foxcroft Academy right off the bat, Wells in week 2. Then you've got some traditional rivals. Now you've got an out of class game there in Skowhegan.
Yeah.
So tell me kind of how is that going to work, where you've got yourself a Class B opponent on your schedule?
Yeah, we played them last year down at Skowhegan. It was a great football game. It was our week 8 game. So, and we had a great time with them. Amazing coaching staff, amazing kids down there. It was a really good football game, but it was a great atmosphere, and it was good to see them on our schedule again and have them up here. So we're looking forward to Skowhegan again.
Good to hear.
Bob, you got anything for Coach?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we talked about, building a culture, building tradition at Herman too. What is it about the Herman, Carmel, Levant communities that make football such a good fit in those communities?
Yeah, I think it's just like a hardworking, loyal community, and that, translates into the game of football so well. My family, me and my wife and my kids are from Levant. So we're entrenched in the Levant community, and obviously I coach in Herman. We have coaches on my staff and players from Carmel. So it's all, we call it the Tri-Town area. It's all one big community, but it's 3 different towns, and it's just all built on hard work, loyal, fight through adversity type people. And I think once you really people start to figure out that that's what football is all about, they latch onto it real easy, and it's an easy translation for our Tri-Town community.
Sure.
Anything else, Bob?
No, that's all I had. Talk a little bit about your matchup with Foxcroft Academy Friday night, maybe matchups, what you have to do to be successful, maybe some of the things you need to take away that they do really well, and maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, they're, just like FA always is, they got great skill guys. Line's got good size. They're a traditional spread team, as they have been in the last few years. They look a lot like they did last year. Young quarterback now who really knows how to throw the ball. He does it really well. He's going to be a handful for the next 4 years. Guys like Lucas Sands, the running backs that are back, these are guys that are going to be a handful. And we saw it firsthand last year, what they can really do. Lucas Sands made a great play against us last year, and I thought their ground game just kind of wore us out towards the end. So we got to do a really good job of just making sure Lucas Sands keeps the ball out of his hands. Good job of trying to limit big plays from the running backs. And we have to take a step forward from where we were last year, and we got to be able to move the ball better than we did last year. I think we can. I think we saw that for us in the Bangor game. We're going to have the ability to move the football in different ways this year, so we're excited about that. We just got to keep them in check. Those skill guys are legit. They're as good as they're going to get. And we just got to make sure that we can move the football and don't let them get us stagnant trying to do that.
And you did, especially early in the ball game too against Bangor, you had some excellent drives. First drive of the game, just weren't able to finish. But what were maybe some of the takeaways that you can take away from the Bangor game going into the game at Foxcroft Friday?
Yeah, I think it's our heart. In years past, we're still a young program, and we're trying to take steps forward every year. And I think in years past, there's been some times that when things have gotten tough, we've backed down a little bit, or maybe even came out of the game of like, this is a really good opponent. We're going to try to feel it out a little bit. I didn't think we did either one of those things against Bangor. We had a rocky second quarter for sure, but I thought we came out in the second half where maybe in other times we would have backed down a little bit and let that game get out of hand. I thought we fought back. So the heart and the physicality, I thought it was a super physical football game, especially for an exhibition game. I'm just proud of those guys for taking the next step forward in our program and playing the game the way it should be. And obviously we got a lot of stuff we need to fix and work on, but I'm super proud of the guys for playing with all heart for 48 minutes.
I totally agree, Coach, and I would certainly agree with that assessment, having watched that Friday night as well. I thought you kids played really hard and showed a lot of heart, battling back, definitely.
Yep.
Coach, may I talk about your team and some of the key players coming back?
Yeah, we got a lot of guys back. We were pretty junior heavy last year. I mean, we definitely graduated an amazing senior class with leadership and on-field ability, but junior, sophomore, freshman heavy last year. So we got guys that are still back in key roles. I think we bring 8 starters back on offense and 9 on defense. So we're right there. All those guys are a year older, faster, stronger, another year in the system. We try to get the ball to a lot of different guys right now. I think we kind of featured 4 or 5 different guys Friday night against Bangor. But same old Herman, Hart, like to run the football. But a lot of the same names you heard last year are a lot of the same names you're going to hear this year. But graduating that class as we did last year to take us to our first state game, you always have to try to replace that, and we're doing a good job right now. The senior class right now is stepping up doing that.
And how can that experience, obviously, the state game go how you wanted to, but the experience of getting there, winning the championship, winning the North, how's that help?
Yeah, I think it's just like little things we've seen in the first 2 weeks of football is normally where we're installing and trying to get things right and do this and do that. We can devour a lot more into the culture things. When you've got guys that have been running this for 2, 3, some of them 4 years now, they can probably run these offices in their sleep. So we're able to really hone down on that heart, that culture, that type of thing, and really take that step forward. So the experience that they've got last year, I think they're hungry right now. I think they just want to play good football. The biggest thing that I've heard them all be, saying is week to week. So I'm glad that we're not looking beyond anybody. I'm glad that we're not making these massive goals that we're trying to obtain. We're just going to play football week to week and let the cards fall where they fall. And
what are your numbers at the varsity level, but also maybe down coming up? Like, what are your numbers?
Yeah, so I'm mid-50s right now at the varsity level, at the high school level, both varsity and JV. It's 57 on the roster. I think I have 54 in pads right now. We got a couple injuries at the younger level. My eighth and seventh grade team has almost 50 kids on it. My 5-6 team has mid-40s. My 3-4 team has mid-30s, and we just started a Tykes team, which is first through third grade development. They're almost 40, and then we got almost like 60 kids pre-K through first doing flag football. So a lot of kids playing football.
So it's not only the present that's but the future's bright too, huh?
Yeah, the future is super bright. My son is in 4th grade, so he's playing 3-4 football. It's his 3rd year playing, and all the groups are a lot of fun to watch. The 7-8 group's doing a great job. The 5-6 group obviously is doing a great job, but I get to be around that 3-4 group a lot, and they're a lot of fun to watch. So the future's bright for Herman. We got great people down at that youth level. I like to be around as much as possible. My football players run the flag football. They coach it. And then they're also around the home 3, 4, and 5, 6 games, and we get to as many 7, 8 games as we can. I think it's huge to have that, inclusion from top to bottom, and it's really bred a lot of good things through football here.
The last thing I want to touch on, Andrew and Bob, you can ask something else if you want, but is that picture that you posted on, so I think it was your son, maybe with his grandfather. That was a great photo.
Yeah, that was my son with my dad. My dad played back in the 70s at Bangor. I played at Baps, early 2000s, and my son's playing 3-4 football right now. So my father and my son bond a lot over the game of football. So
yeah, that was a great photo.
Yeah, it was an amazing photo, and shout out to Candid Lens Photo. Carrie Limo, her kid played football for me, and she's one of the best, people you'll ever meet. And she did a great job snagging that photo.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for joining us. And, Andrew, Bob, anything else for Coach?
No, just best of luck this season. And I will hopefully make it over to Herman some night for a game this year anyway.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Absolutely.
Andrew?
And I would echo those same sentiments from Bob. Best of luck on the season. It was great watching your run up to the state title game. Just little kind of disheartening to see what happened there at Lewiston. But hey, it's all the more that makes these, your juniors and your juniors last year, now your seniors, realize that these times are special and to seize the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And that's our next step forward in the program is. And hopefully that experience makes us understand that type of stuff. But I'll tell you, that Freiburg Academy football team was unreal. They were so good. They deserved every minute of that. My kids will tell you that. They were phenomenal in every facet, experience, and, hats off to them. Well coached, well played. And I'm just glad that we got to experience that and know where we need to be as a program. And we're super excited about it. But thanks, guys, for having me. I appreciate it. And to all three of you, everything you guys do for State of Maine high school football, from me and everybody else, we appreciate it.
Okay,
well, thank you. Thank you, Coach. And see you Friday. We'll have the game. Charlie Beal and Chris Lesson will be on the broadcast, and we'll all be there. And look forward to a good one Friday night.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Guys, as I got with Coach Gallant, those numbers that he talked about all the way down, from the little kids all the way up. I don't think that program's stopping anytime soon, huh?
No, I think you can certainly classify Herman as being a football community now, and they don't take a backseat to anybody anywhere in the state. I mean, they've been consistently good, and I think eventually, I don't know if it'll be this year or not, but I think eventually they will be hoisting that gold ball, and maybe many more down the line.
Yeah, and Andrew, you talked about how solid that Freiburg team was, and they certainly are, and they're going to be dangerous again, aren't they?
From everything that I've heard, they've still bringing back a strong core of juniors coming back to this team. May not be as simple as it was, because they were the first team since Chevrolet, at least going back to 2004, that did not allow a single point in the playoffs, which is just unreal. You think about it, and that for an 11-man team, that's just amazing, because that's how many different playoff scenarios, how many different championship teams, how many amazing squads there's been over the years. And Freiburg is that team that gave up that many points in their playoff run.
Yeah, no doubt. While we wait for Coach White should be joining us shortly. Why don't we kind of maybe start our preview? Why don't we start with Class C? Actually, that way we can kind of transition, to Coach if he gets on here. Andrew, what do you kind of see as we've kind of touched on it a little bit? It's kind of a loaded class now, huh?
It is so tough to look at Class C right now and to start picking out, who do I think is going to be in your top three? Who is going to be in your next three? Who's it that's going to be fighting for that 10th and final playoff spot? It's just so loaded, and it's exciting. I am giddy at the prospect of kind of figuring out all the various hurdles that are going to be jumped. It's going to be a crazy race for the next 8 weeks, watching, I think realistically, you could probably say there's about 3 or 4 good teams that's going to make for an amazing top battle. And then you've got some developing squads, some rebuilding squads that's going to make for a very interesting kind of, you know, slugfest, trying to hold on to places 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then trying to see if, you know, who else is going to be able to make it into those final 9 and 10 spots, and that, you know, that unlucky soul that's going to get into that 11th spot. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch.
And this kind of maybe covers every class, what I'm about to say, but this shouldn't be as many lopsided games this year. Don't you think, Bob? Maybe this should be a little bit more competitive overall.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you look at Class C too. There aren't a whole lot of easy games. I went and saw Old Town on Saturday. They played Mattanock, won that game. Now it was, starters the first half, JVs in the second half, so it was 30-12 at halftime. But they've got some explosive playmakers. Their quarterback, Ethan Clausen's really good, can run, throw. They've got some good weapons around him. And then, David Gross, is coaching them, an outstanding player at Bucksport High School and UMaine. And they're, solid physical up front. So I look for Old Town to be very improved this year. That's going to be a very good or potentially good game with Madomic Valley on Saturday. Again, you're talking about another program that's got a really good culture, Madomic Valley. Been in the regional final last 3 years, was in the state final 3 seasons ago. Coach Ryan Snell down there has done, an outstanding job with them. So there's a lot of teams in Class C, and there's not a lot of, you got to come to play every single week in that league.
Yeah, certainly. And you look it up and down the league. Mentioned all the defending champ, but there's other teams. Madomic Valley. I've heard Coach Gallant before, and he mentioned again tonight about not playing Madomic Valley this year. They played 8 times in the last 4 years before this. So kind of Madomic might be another team that can compete.
Yeah, I think so. And then also don't forget about Leavitt. Leavitt, kind of had a down year by their standards. I expect them to bounce back, and I think could very well win it this year when it's all said and done.
Well, we got another special guest here coming on. We'll get Coach Danny White here joining us. And hey, Coach, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yes, thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, we got Drew Hart from Maine High School football with us, and Bob. You probably know Bob Beetham pretty well, huh?
I do. How you doing this evening?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm going to let Drew start. We've kind of been talking. We talked to Coach Gallant, and we just kind of been talking about Class C a little bit. And I'm going to let Andrew kind of start the questions for you.
Yeah, great.
Welcome aboard, Danny. Pleasure being able to speak to somebody who's, when I look at what you've been able to accomplish in your tenure at Foxcroft Academy, it stands out as making probably one of the top top performing teams in the state, probably one of the top performing coaches in the state. And I'm not trying to use that term, loosely against you, but when I look at your history, everything that you've been able to accomplish, it's just unreal. You've been to state championships the last 4 years. You've been 4 years and 6 out of the past 7 seasons, if we ignore the COVID year. And I look at your run going back into the 20 teens, and just what is it about, your program, the community, the football team that just creates so much success out there?
I think a lot of it is continuity. We're a small, a small community, so that's part of it. But the community is galvanized by its football program, and that wasn't any different when I was a kid. I was fortunate enough to be able to coach where I've played, and I've been able to be with, some amazing people that have coached in this program, throughout my entire tenure. Gary Worthing has been with me since 2009 when I started, and he has coached on and off here at Foxcroft Academy throughout the youth ranks all the way through to being a head coach in the 80s and winning a state championship. So he's been with me from day one as well. So, having that continuity at the high school level, so that your youth programs can thrive, and your coaches that are at the youth levels can remain intact for the most part. That's a big part of it. And then of course you obviously, I mean, with any program, you've got to have the kids. Like, you've got to have the kids that love playing the game. And I don't know if there's any type of, there's no secret sauce or anything like that. Our kids love to play and love to compete. And, we've been fortunate enough to have some success along the way. And, I just credit it to the people that I've been able to do this with. And, hopefully there's a little bit more ahead too. So, I think it just boils down to good people around you, all working towards the same common goal.
Yeah. And Bob, you got coach?
Yeah, we were just talking a little bit before you came on about some of the contenders in Class C this year. Who do you, obviously, big game with Herman Friday night, but who do you look at some of the top teams to be in Class C this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes without question that you've got to mention the names of Levitt. You've got to, Mike Hathaway and what he's done over the years. Regardless of what happened to them last year, they're always going to contend and should be considered a contender. Obviously, Wells and what they're doing and what they've done over the years. Regardless of what class they're in, they're playing for trophies in November. And then, what Herman's, they're on a mission, right? Herman's rolling. Their youth programs are headed in the right direction, doing everything that you would want a program to do. And they're now, winning at the high school level and contending at the high school level for state championships like they did last year. So those three, come to mind. I think Madomic, what Ryan's been able to do at Madomic over the last handful of years, trending in the right direction with wins late in the season and playing meaningful games in November. So Madomic is right there. And then honestly, I don't know enough or Greeley to comment on them. But I'm sure that we'll have to come ready to play regardless on that. And, Gardner, you throw Gardner into the mix. That's a football town, a football community. And I know they're well coached and they'll be ready to play. And of course, Hamden, Brewer, those are programs and communities that are on the upward trend as well with their football team. So, it's quite a schedule. Old Town is obviously they played well this past weekend. So there's a lot of unknowns, but there's also a lot of football tradition now in Class C with the shakeup. So, and having no regions, right? Regionless Class C, it's going to make for quite a competitive regular season. I didn't even mention Oceanside. There's just a number of teams and programs that that have earned the respect, and you got to come to play every Friday.
Now, preparation wise, how's this change things? I mean, obviously you got Herman, you got Old Town a few weeks, you got some common opponents that you've always had, but does this change preparation for teams that you haven't?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I mean, I don't have a lot of tape, to study on some of these programs. So that changes things a little bit, but I guess at the end of the day, this early in the season, we're trying to focus on what we can do to get better each and every week so that we can be, the best version of ourselves on Friday. And that's really all that I'm concerned about. And all we're concerned about right now is, can we be the best version of ourselves on Friday night on Oaks Field against Herman? And, if we can do that, if we can be a good week one football team, then I'll be pretty happy.
Now, I want to talk about who you got coming back, and you got a very solid group. One of the players you lost, Thomas Day, is definitely going to be a big loss to your defense, especially.
Oh, no question. I mean, Thomas was arguably one of the top players in all of Class D last year as a sophomore. and his injury, and he's healing, so he's doing better, so that's good, and he'll hopefully make a full recovery and return to the diamond this spring at full strength. But not having him on the field on the gridiron is certainly going to change the way we look. But we knew about it. It wasn't a surprise. We knew it was coming, and other kids have stepped up. Tyler Wing is getting an opportunity to start at linebacker as a junior, and really has done a fine job so far along the offensive line. We got a couple new faces there that kids are stepping up. But there's no question. I mean, you lose one of your better players, and it's going to have an impact, especially when you only have about 40 on your roster. So, I mean, like I said, he was a staple of our defense, and he was a tremendous offensive lineman. So his presence will be missed, but it's our job and our kids' job to move forward and fill that void the best we can.
What are your dynamic playmakers, Lucas Sands? Is that kind of maybe a focus to try to find ways to get the ball in his hands?
Yeah, I mean, similar to years past, we want to put the ball in the hands of the guys that we think can do some damage. And Lucas, we know he can do damage in the open field, and certainly with his size, he's going to have some advantage there. And we want to take advantage of that the best way we can. And if defenses are going to show their hand to that, it's our job as coaches to use that against them. Good players and playmakers have the ability to affect the game when the ball's in their hands and when it isn't. So, that's one of the things that he's got to be ready for, is that teams are going to be looking to take that element of our offense away and have the patience enough to battle through it. And what that'll do is open up other areas. But Lucas showed last year that he could stretch the field vertically, and we feel like we can expand upon our pass game more this fall and give ourselves a greater opportunity to make more plays downfield for him.
One of the things in the past few years you've had a big advantage on others is special teams. Is maybe I don't know who's your kick share and whatnot yet, but is that another aspect where you get kind of strong at?
Yeah, I mean, I feel good about our special teams. Hayden Harvey is back to kick for us, and he kicked for the majority of last year before he went out with a shoulder injury, and so he missed three weeks in the middle of the season last year with a shoulder injury. But he kicked well, kicked off and PAT field goal kicker, place kicker as well, and we feel good about that. He doesn't have the length on his leg that like a kid like Kemsley Marsters had a handful of years ago, but that's a rare thing. But as far as high school kickers go, I mean, Aiden does a fine job and will give us a chance to be successful in the special teams. And Lucas will punt. Lucas Sands will punt for us, and he did just an awesome job for us last year, flipping the field and taking advantage of the opportunity for our defense to get ourselves in better position. So I feel good about our special teams guys, and we'll see what happens.
Andrew, you got anything for Coach before I let him go?
Well, as I just look through Class C, I see such a wide variety of different offensive looks that you're going to be facing. And how is it, as you're transitioning from Class D up to Class C, do you see anything that's going to have to kind of change the way that you're putting your defense together when you're coming up with your strategies for the upcoming week?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Fundamentally, I think we're going to probably try to stay true to ourselves and play our style, if you will, defensively. But we definitely have got to play faster. We're definitely going to have to play a more physical brand of football, and that's something that we've always tried to pride ourselves on, is being a physical team. Where there's no question that as you move from Class D to Class C or from B to A, regardless whether that you're going up in class, you're going to have to strap it up night in and night out. And there's no plays off. There's certainly no weeks off. So there's no plays off, and we've got to make sure that we come ready to play and not feel bad for ourselves. We've got to adjust on the fly and be ready to go. That's all there is to it.
Bob, you got anything else for Coach before we let him go?
Yeah, what are some of the things that Herman does that concerns you going into Friday night, and maybe some of the ways that you might be able to, take advantage of some of the, things that you do?
That's good. So I mean, Herman. I mean, they ran the ball with great success against Bangor the other night, and with physicality. And on top of that, they've got playmakers, so they're versatile. They don't have to stay, in that double tight straight T formation and have success, because they can open it up and in playing the shotgun and move the ball around through the air as well. So they concern me in a bunch of areas because of their ability to be versatile, and that's I think the goal of most any high school football coach is that you want to be as versatile as you can on offense, so that when something breaks down, or when a player is injured, or when a team takes an element of your offense away, you have the ability to counter and adjust. And I think Herman does a good job with that, and Kyle has built the offense to have balance so that they can do a multitude of things. And we're going to have the ability to stop the run and be in position to get them into some situations where we have a plus advantage on the defensive side. So that's concerning. Defensively, they're sound and they're disciplined, and they don't make a lot of mistakes. They're not really out of position a whole lot. So we're going to have to be fundamental, stay on blocks, and give our ball carriers a chance to make some plays in the open field. If we can get that, then I feel like we'll have an opportunity to be successful. But we've had great games over the years, and I would expect Friday night to be another one.
Anything else, guys?
I'm good.
No, again, good luck with the season, and we'll probably see you down the road here at some point.
All right.
Well, and Coach, we'll be there Friday night. Charlie Beal and Chris Leston are on the call, and I'll be there to see you Friday.
Awesome. See you then. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Dan.
All right.
All right. So that was, kind of maybe Andrew, you kind of overview of the talks, Coach White and Coach Gallant. Like, kind of doesn't change what we're expecting Friday night, does it?
No, it really doesn't. But I think this is nice thing that you were able to put together this year for this, so we could kind of get into the head, so to speak, of two coaches on equal sides and try to kind of hear some of the things, because obviously they're very respectful for one another, and they both understand the accomplishments, of what Kyle's had in Herman, what Danny's had with Foxcroft Academy, and it's a cool perspective, if I can say so, of hearing each other's takes on where they see the other team at without giving away all the secrets.
Yeah, and we knew they wouldn't give away any secrets, obviously, right. But and both pretty smart in that way, and as you said, both have total respect for each other. They both think a lot of each other's programs, and as they should. Foxcroft's got the tradition, and Herman's Coach Gallant's building something special there in Herman, so it's definitely should be fun. Bob, maybe your takes from the conversations with the two coaches.
Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot to choose from in that game Friday night. Again, as I talked about earlier before they came on, probably a turnover, big special teams play, something like that will be deciding factor in that game Friday night. I don't think there's really a whole lot to choose between the two teams.
Yeah, and I know where people can watch that, so make sure you tune in, because Bob Beetham says it's going to be a good game, so it's going to be a good game. We can move on.
Friday night.
What's that?
I wish I could clone myself and be up there Friday night, but
while you're doing PA, you can just have it on your phone or something.
I have zero distractions when I'm on the PA mic, so
that's why you're a true pro. Now we can get on with the rest of our review. Let's maybe we can go back and start with the Class A, and Andrew, Portland, obviously, coming back, and but there's two kind of big games here in week one, Class A. In week one, there's two big games, right? So, kind of interesting right off the bat there in Class A. You got, Portland, Darren Bangor is playing, and South Portland Bonnie Eagle playing. Kind of good, kind of measuring sticks for those two games right there, isn't it?
I think it'll be good to kind of see where each of those two respective sides are at so early in the season. I look at Portland, and they did lose quite a lot of talent from their state championship team last year. They were incredibly well built. And not only that, they have a brand new head coach. Sean Green stepped down to take up opportunities elsewhere. And in came Nick Cleach. Well, some people may say, Nick who? And I've had a opportunity to know him for some time. He has been he's been pretty loyal to Sean. He had served as an assistant in Cape Elizabeth. He was there during their state championship run. He then followed him over to Portland, where he served in a similar capacity. So he is very much a disciple of Sean. However, he's going to have some new wrinkles, and this is going to be his first opportunity kind of as the big whistleblower. And I'm very interested in seeing just what sort of team we can expect from Portland, especially with Louis Thurston gone. They've got a couple key guys off the line gone. They still bring back Cordell Jones, who was last year's Gatorade mainstay of the football player of the year award. So he's going to be returning back for his senior year. So they've got some weapons. I think they're going to see some changes. Oxford Hills, they definitely, I mean, they sadly were kind of on a downward slide from their state championship run. Seems like they're just trying to recollect themselves. And then I hop on over to the other side of the regional divide, and you look at Bonnie Eagle and South Portland. Bonnie Eagle, it's been a while since they've been to the state championship, and that's not exactly common for them, considering years past they were pretty synonymous with top of the rankings. And then at the same time, you've got South Portland, who Aaron Filio's taken over his hometown club, and he's kind of been one of those guys who's been in the fight. It's just been kind of that one little piece, one little play short of just kind of making it all the way. So I'm looking forward to both of those games in that regard.
Yeah. What about Thornton? They're obviously always there. And what do you think about them this year?
If you look back in the records, Thornton Academy been there for the last 6 years, and I don't think you can ever find a on again, off again. And I mean that in almost a literal sense, because if you look back, 2018 they won to beat Portland. 2019 they lost to Bonnie Eagle. Skip the COVID year of 2020. 2021 they beat Oxford Hills. 2022 they lost to Oxford Hills. 2023 they beat Portland. 2024 they lost to Portland. So I feel confident in saying Thornton Academy is going to win. Just, well, the silliness of saying, on again, off again, but at the same time, they looked very, very strong in their exhibition game against Deering. Incredibly strong. And I've heard that this is going to be a very senior, strong team. And anytime Coach Kevin Kiesel has such a strong collective group under his wings there, they just come out looking so strong. And I think he's going to need that, because you look at who else is going to be in Class A. You've got two teams that are moving up. Deering's now in A, they're in the north. Massabesic's moving up. Both were in B, they're in A. Massabesic's in the south. It's no longer going to be just the top four and then the bottom two are out. They're still going to have the top four in each region making the playoffs, but it's going to be a tough battle, I think, for places 3, 4, and 5. It's not just going to be a gimme, because last year after South Portland, it was such a long drop. You go South Portland 5 and 4, then 5th place Sanford 1 and 8. You are not going to see that sort of a gap going into the 5th place or even 6th place. And I think that's what's going to make Class A so much more compelling. There's going to be such a big competitive fight to try to keep things, for teams trying to make those playoff spots.
Bob, can you touch on Bangor a little bit? I know you've seen preseason, quite a lot about their kids coming up and stuff. Maybe you can touch on them.
Yeah, they've got a real good senior class this year. again, this was a group. A lot of them played as freshmen, so they've played a lot of football over the last 4 years. They're finally seniors. They were 1-8 as freshmen, but I think this is the year that they can have a shot to win the North and play in a state championship game. Kyle Johnson is in outstanding shape. And he looks more like a true quarterback this year. Last year, he was kind of placed into duty and, was an athlete, strong runner that played quarterback. But he's lost, I guess, about 20 pounds this year, but still, strong kid. He's gotten a lot faster this year. So they've got him a quarterback. And then to run the football for them, they've got Zach Coda, big, strong kid for them, also plays linebacker. And then Eli Marsh is a real speedster as well. So they've got a very diverse running game. And then they, also have some targets they can throw to as well. They've got a veteran, experienced offensive line. So I think Bangor could very well come out of the North this year in playing a state championship game.
Yeah, and was going to say in the South, Moshwood, Kennebunk, kind of the names, but I'm sorry, I've already dropped to B. That's my fault. That happens when we go live like this sometimes. Huh? But I'm already. But no, that's a good cap of A. Any final thoughts on Class A, guys?
I think Class A too. I think you got to look at Thornton Academy too. Again, they always seem to reload down there, and that could be a very interesting Week 2 matchup with Bangor down at TA. So. And then another big game this week too that we haven't really talked about, Wyndham at Noble. What are your thoughts on? I don't know a lot about Wyndham, Andrew. What are you hearing out of Wyndham?
I've heard that they've got they're another team that's going to have a very senior strong group. They had kind of an off year last year. They barely squawked into the playoffs. They were only 3-6. They managed to fit ahead of 4 and 5 Oxford Hills by only a few Crabtree points. This time around, I'm hearing a lot of good things about them, that Wyndham is definitely on the uptick. Perkins got a very strong team ahead of him that could be another one of those teams pushing to the top. It's not going to be an easy year for Portland by any stretch of the means. I look at last year's Lewiston squad. They managed to finish second place. They did kind of fall a little bit short. Bangor bested them in the regional semifinals to be able to go on to the regional finals last year. And I think that it's going to be different to see what Lewiston can do. Joe Doobie, who was last year's Gaziano Defensive Lineman of the Year award, or Defensive Lineman Award recipient, he was definitely going to be missed on that line. So this could be one of those things where Coach Jason Versey is going to have to try to kind of put together a fighting squad that's going to need to battle throughout each of the weeks. And I think that's what I like the most about A this year. Last year, A, we all looked forward to some of those top games, but it felt like some of the games were kind of, dare I say, you knew what to expect coming in. And I almost feel like that may not be the case so much this year. I hope I'm definitely right on this, because, good competition always makes for interesting watching.
Yeah, it certainly does. That's a good recap of A, and I kind of we'll reveal our picks tomorrow to everybody who we picked. But that Bangor Darien game, I know Bob and I picked opposite of that. So I think there's a lot of good games in right off the bat.
I agree.
Yeah, so we can move on to Class B. I was trying to move on sooner for some reason, but you guys are having a good chat about A, and I'm on to Class B. But I think Class B is going to be very interesting. Obviously, Freiburg's moving down to C. You got Falmouth there in the south. Kind of back. Obviously Kennebunk, Mashwood, Coney. So. I guess we can start with you this time, Bob. What's your feeling about Class B, and maybe a team that come out of it, maybe can come out of that?
Coney's been kind of knocking at the door the last several years. They last won the state title in 2013 and have been an upper echelon team, but haven't quite been able to break through. I think this is the year they finally do that with Parker Moran as the as the quarterback for them. They've got a lot of experience there. So I really like Coney out of the north. Freiburg Academy coming up to be hard to think of Freiburg Academy as a Northern Maine Class B school, but they're going to be in the Pine Tree Conference this year in Class B.
How far south as you can get?
Well, kind of west. I mean, I guess it's western Maine, not really like south, but western, right on the New Hampshire borders. So you've got them, and then you've got good game Friday night will be Coney Messalonsky, the Doucette kid at quarterback for Messalonsky. Could be a shootout over in Oakland on Friday night. And then team that I'm hearing a lot of good things about too that's very young, but they're very high on their sophomore class is Lawrence. And Lawrence always seems to get better as the year goes on. So they're probably a year, maybe couple of years away. But I think Lawrence too is a team that you wouldn't want to play, come November.
Their line looks like they had good size. I saw them in control scrimmage at Foxcroft, and they looked can't tell much about a control from a control scrimmage, but you can tell that kind of the line is looks like they've been able to compete there. And Andrew, what's your kind of thoughts maybe of Class B overall, especially the South?
South is the shakeup. Gone is Deering, who was if you want to see an example of what goes into a rebuild, what Brendan Scully's done with that Rams team, all you got to remember is back in 2022, they were 1-7. They were doormats. Gonna have to call it what it is. They were doormats. The next year they go 4-4. Last year they go 7-1. They go 7-1, and they end up going all the way back to the regional finals for the first time in how far back is it? What does it look like?
Probably 2010 when they lost on the last second field goal to Chevrolet in Class A. I think that might be the last time they were in the regional final.
Yeah. So what Brendan's been able to put together to kind of help simplify the plan of basically making it, going to the basics, ground and pound was their MO. They had Tavares. Was it Tavares Jackson? If I remember right.
Yeah, sounds right.
So, not only was he a threat on the ball, he was also a threat defensively, interception machine. He was also a kicking machine. So without him around, it's going to be incumbent upon the Rams when they're kind of making that move up. Again, we're going to go back to A really quickly, but it's going to be incumbent upon them for a rebuild. But to go back to B without them around, that's going to be an interesting kind of gap in the South. Massabiesic, who was in a strong rebuild under Lucas Lab, they were rebuilding the Mustangs from a program that was really struggling for a while. They're gone. So now when you look at B, what's really there? Well, Kennebunk, last 2 years state champions. What Keith Knowles been able to rebuild out of the Rams after Coach Joe Rafferty had retired. And funny thing is, Joe Rafferty ends up retiring 1 game short of tying the late, great John Wolfgrim's record for most games coached in Maine. Little FYI right there. So I like what Keith's been able to do with the Rams. I don't think it's going to be nearly as easy the last 2 years because 1, Falmouth is moving over. 2, Marshwood has played the Rams toughos at both games last year went to overtime. So it's not going to be just that simple for them. And that Coach Rotzko is going to want to kind of bring that Hawks team back to the state championship. For him, it's been a little bit. You look at Chevrolet, they're going to be a bit of a road warrior team. The venerable Bolus Stadium on the backside of the Back Cove in Portland, that's going to be unavailable. They're putting artificial turf there. So they're going to be playing a road schedule. They've got 2 games at Memorial Field on the Deering side of Portland. Then they've got their final 2 games on the peninsula side of Portland at Fitzpatrick Stadium. Skip's got kind of, he's putting his stamp of approval on that team, which is never a good sign for the rest of the state. Anybody who's ever worked with Skip will know that he gets the best he can out of the kids, and the kids are willing to give him their absolute 110% best. And then you look at, Gorham's going to be improved. Westbrook's on the build, and they're looking improved. Biddeford's still trying, I think they're going to be more improved than the last couple of years. So I think overall B is going to be tougher than last year. It's just, I'm can't wait to see what's going to happen in that opening round match. In my opinion, best game of the state. And that's I'm not trying to disparage our two guests from earlier, Kyle and Danny, but I'm salivating at watching that Falmouth Kennebunk game on Friday night at 6:00.
Yeah, that should be special. Maybe can we? Because obviously, Falmouth, it wasn't really expected what they did last year before the year. Is there another team maybe you can think of that could be that team this year? Because obviously they weren't expected, so we kind of had to kind of pick a team that might do that. But any team that might have that kind of growth this year?
I'm thinking maybe Chevrolet. Again, Skip Capone's second year there. They're kind of building something there. I think eventually they would like to get back to Class A football, but Chevrolet might be that team this year that might surprise some people.
You think you want Andrew?
I'm inclined to agree with that. I think the Stags have it's been a couple off years. They've been in a bit of a transition since they came up from 8-man, new face, when Skip Capone took over last year. But I'd be inclined to agree. I think the Stags are that team that's poised to make that breakout. The only thing is, a lot of people were taken off by surprise to see what Falmouth's coach Spencer Emerson was able to put together with the Navigators. Nothing against Skip, but I think a lot of people that if they can have that sort of turnaround as well, I think people will kind of say, oh, it's Skip. We knew it was going to happen sooner or later.
Before we move on to Class C, I want to let people know that on Thursday night we got Matt Cook at Dexter Boys Soccer. That's a video-only broadcast at 4 p.m. And on Friday night, because we got the Herman Foxcroft football full coverage pregame starts at 6:45. You can watch all of our broadcasts on Facebook at Eastern Maine Sports, YouTube Eastern Maine Sports Media, X at Eastern ME Sports, and also on our website at easternmainesports.com. So more ways than ever to watch our stuff and can watch them on replay if you can't watch it live. Also, so looking forward to it. Exciting year. Starts with us boys soccer Thursday afternoon, and Friday night we start with the football opener at Oaks Field at Foxcroft. So, and speaking of that matchup, we'll go on to Class C. We touched on Class quite a bit already, but again, we kind of to review the people that maybe weren't here for Coach Glenn and Coach White and kind of our talk, but it's kind of a loaded class, isn't it, Andrew?
Very loaded. No, putting the North, putting the South together, it's not going to be easy. Every place is going to be up for contention. You've got, state championship appearances in this class from Foxcroft Academy, Greeley, Herman, Wells. That just.
Yeah, but and teams that have been there, done that too. In Leavitt, maybe not last year, but Leavitt, and the tradition there, as Coach White kind of mentioned, and it really doesn't matter what they did last year. They're going to be ready to be back.
Yeah, and then you've got David Gross taking over at Old Town, first-year head coach. I'm hearing some great things. When you take a lineman and you put him into a program that's got good athletes, only good things are going to come out of that. You've got, I keep looking down again, Leavitt, Mike Hathaway, the Hornets are just, few programs are as perennially tough as his at such a small level. And now you're putting him together with other teams that are also just as perennially tough, which just makes it all the more exciting. I look at what Sam Weiss had. He had a bit of an off season. Graduations really hit him hard. And he's telling me that he's got some athletes back, and be careful, because when his teams have athletes and the systems that he plays, everybody's in for a shootout there. And I think one team that I'm keeping an eye on, in addition to what, what we've seen elsewhere for teams on the move, I think Greeley could have the potential to be a dark horse. And I only say that because most people look at an 8-man team going to 11 as being one of those, well, they're in for an off season. They're in for a learning curve. And after seeing what Caleb King was able to put together last year in the Rangers run up to their state title game and appearance and victory in Kennebunk last year, I think some people are going to be surprised. Not only do they have the athletes, they've also got a lot of good size on their line. That's going to surprise quite a few people. And just, don't be surprised if they look that strong, just because this is something that they were built for the last couple of years when they reformed as their own unique program.
Yeah,
after co-oping with Falmouth.
And Bob, you mentioned a big game, and we talked about Foxcroft Herman because we have it, and we had the two coaches on. That should be a great game. But you mentioned another one, Madomic Valley in Old Town should be pretty good on Saturday too, huh?
I think it's going to be an outstanding game. And then you look at Madomic Valley too. I saw their game with Winthrop the other night, and we'll talk a little bit about Winthrop Monmouth when we get to Class D. But Madomic Valley's gone to more of a, they've been a traditional power I for many years. They've gone to spread offense as well, and they like to try. So that could be a very interesting game Saturday down at Waldoboro. I'm looking forward to that one. And then Old Town's got a very good quarterback and Ethan Clausen, a lot of good athletes to go with him, good line. So I'm looking forward to seeing that on Saturday.
Any final thoughts on Class C, guys?
It's going to be fun to watch.
It's
going to be a fun game, fun year to watch for that class.
And we move on to Class D now, as definitely Foxcroft's gone, Wells gone. Yeah, we got a whole different look in Class D, but it kind of opens up the door for some teams that haven't been there, haven't been to the East for a while. How you in the let's start with that, Bob. You got John Baps, a team well, and kind of Winslow, Matt Knockhook. Matt Knockhook kind of impressed me last year. A game at Foxcroft. They kind of were very competitive until kind of later in the second half. So that might be a team that kind of no one's thinking about. They had kind of a young team last year too. But what do you see again, especially with John Baps, a team that well?
Yeah, I mean they've certainly a very veteran team. First time in a few years that they've had a really, strong core of seniors. Starting center, starting quarterback have been starters now for 4 years. Aiden Willett, the quarterback, and then Zach Gaudette's the center for them. And they've got a couple of good backs to run with. Malcolm Butler looked very good against Brewer on Saturday in their exhibition game. They've got a strong fullback. Thomas Curtis is a Bangor Christian kid. They were able to draw kids from Bangor Christian as well in co-op. So, he's very good at fullback. A lot of kids on the line. I believe they returned like 9 starters on offense and about the same number on defense. So I think John Baps might be the team to beat in Class D North, along with Winslow.
Yeah. So that should be, again, very interesting. Because we never know who's going to win. Before the season, the last few years, we kind of thought we knew who was going to time, and it would be Fox Academy as they have the clear favorite in Class D North. But I mean, as you said, you think Baps might be the favorite, but it's really kind of up in there really, as you mentioned Winslow and again, I don't know about Matt Knockhook, but they seem like they had a good running back, a young running back last year too. So it could be up in the air. But Andrew, who do you see again? Who would you see as the favorite in the South?
In the South, right after Wells, it's been Winthrop nipping at their heels, and immediately they get my attention because they have a strong ground game going down there. What they've been able to cultivate over the last couple of years. Now they're on the speed of turf, which just makes them all the more faster. And They were neck and neck with Wells, if I remember right. If I look at my information here, it was not exactly a blow up. Well, kind of was, but it wasn't like Winthrop just kind of fell apart when they were playing when they played Wells in their last game of the season. And then when you look at the regional finals, you know, I think injuries may have kind of taken their toll on them as they were kind of, you know, coming into the final turn there. But I think you get rid of Wells and Winthrop's got to be looked at, in my opinion, as the overall favorite down in the South. And then you kind of work your way down the line. Dirigo was a really good story coming out of the 8-man class. They were doing well numbers wise. May not have been the biggest team down there, but they definitely had the strong athletes. I think they'll be in for a bit of a rebuild. Oak Hill's looking to kind of make that move up a little bit. Mountain Valley, I think they can do much better than last year. Definitely. I think a team that I'm keeping an eye on just to see what they can do is Poland. Nothing's been said much about them for the longest time, and I think with what second-year coach Seth Johnson's been able to do, I think now he's got a system in place. One of his players happened to rank very highly at the Skowhegan Big Man tournament or Big Man competition, which caught a lot of people by surprise. So keep an eye on them. The Knights may surprise some people coming out of the South there. I don't know if they're quite yet poised to fight Winthrop for the crown, but again, keep an eye on them. You might be surprised by them.
And either way, we're going to see different teams playing in the state game than we've seen in recent years. So that'll be kind of interesting and good, and kind of good to see. Now let's move. Let's move to
sometimes some new faces is always a good thing, right?
Yeah, that's right. Let's go to 8-man large now, and we can start in the north. Holton lost obviously a chunk of their offense, but here they still should be competitive. What do you know about them, Andrew?
Some great things have been written about Isaiah Irvin going to the Black Bears. And it just again goes to show that just because it's 8-man football, it doesn't take away from the ability of the player. That should be a given. The fact that you've got a finalist for the Fitzpatrick coming out of the 8-man large school, playing on a team that was, I believe this was their first time competing for the regional finals. So good things are looking in store for them. They're making the move to a north that, when I look at it top to bottom, I think they've got plenty of places to build and expand. They're definitely in a place where nobody's going to be surprised this time around by their success. Not saying last year people were surprised, but I think this time around people are going to immediately say, "Oh, we got Holton. We know what we're in for this year. This is going to be a tough battle."
And then, I think Camden Hills, MDI, probably should be in the mix, don't you think, in the north?
Of course, Camden Hills. The last 2 years, they've been at the top of the large man classification. Last year, overall, in the when it was a single region or single statewide region, and then the year before in the north, they've just kind of been that one, I guess, injury that's kind of tripped them up at the end. Last year, they lose their quarterback, then they go into the semifinal game, I guess you could say, and then they ended up losing to what was it? They lost to what was the team there that they lost to? Mount Ararat, who ended up being the eventual runners-up to Greeley. I look at Mount Desert Island, this time around, 2 years removed from their state championship win in 2023. I don't really know too much about them, but I do know that now again, nobody knew a whole, I mean, other than Spencer Lorendo, there wasn't really a whole lot known outside of their region to the state, and look what they were able to accomplish getting in there. So, could be an interesting battle. And then, of course, Ellsworth. They have one of the best years in their program's history last year, going 6-2. Looks strong coming into the playoffs. And again, I like what I'm seeing in Waterville. They've had some down years, but again, nothing's ever for certain when you can see how quickly some of these teams can immediately rebound the following year.
Yeah, in the eight-man lodge South, Mount Ararat, as you said, very strong last year. They were running to Greeley. Greeley there anymore. So, what do they have coming back?
Frank True always is able to, he's figured out the running component of 8-man, I think, better than anybody. And that includes Travis Lazarik's self-imposed or self-created title of the Godfather to Old Orchard Beach's Dean Plant. Few coaches in 8-man have figured out how to make a dynamic two backfield work with almost anybody and having great success with it. So any time you're coming into the season, you're automatically going to look at Mount Ararat as saying, okay, what has Frank got going on this year? Which kids has he been able to build up to become part of his two-man backfield? So, of course, you're going to have to look at them. Then I look at some of the newcomers to the large man ranks in the South. Cape Elizabeth, they're making a drop from the Class C South down to 8-man. Numbers were kind of on the low side. Yeah, they did very well last year, but it just kind of showed when they played Levitt that just, injury, they were starting to lose players from attrition over the course of the season. This time around, from their exhibition game against Orono, I heard some amazing things about them, that the athletes that they've got are really able to shine without having to rely upon a predominantly strong back or an offensive line. So 8-man is always taught that while ground games are good, athletes are better. So they could be a team that could surprise some folks. You may not think so, but again, athletes will shine. Then I look at Spruce Mountain. Spruce Mountain was one of those teams that they were there with Old Orchard Beach at the top, and there's no reason to think that now with the Phoenix kind of on their own, having a chance to go up against a South that may be on a bit of a downslide overall compared to last year, this could be another time for them to finally shine. It's been a while since that combined community of Jay and Livermore Falls has really been able to make some noise getting back to state. And who knows, this could be an open kind of class come November.
Yeah. Definitely a lot of insight there for the 8-man lateral division. We'll go on the 8-man small school. And I think North division here, I think, is wide open. I mean, I think obviously has a lot coming back. They might be the favorite, but you got Dexter, who has a lot of athletes. When you have athletes in 8-man, you always have a chance. There. So you got Dexter, and obviously Bucksport's got the tradition of a football program there. Kind of up in the air. I didn't even mention Orono. Yeah, Coach Sinclair and that great program there. They're going to be right in the mix and are going to be right in it every week. What do you think about that? The 8-man North small conference.
I think it's going to be a little bit different. Gone is Jack Brewer from Orono, who has been, there's been some good kids that you've seen from the 8-man ranks, but I think Jack Brewer deserves to have his name etched in stone for a while now. One, he was a 4-year starter. You don't see that in high school. And, he was able to bring his team from, help lead his team from initial struggles as a freshman all the way up to going to state championships as a sophomore and as a junior. Again, not really some things that you see. So he's gone. So I think it'll be unique to see what Bob Sinclair can get for a quarterback in there. He's going to have to start all over for the first time in 4 years. I'm kind of excited to see what he can do. He's definitely no slouch to the game. He's given, he's bought into 8-man, which is always great, and I want to see what he can do. But unlike years past, he's no longer the front runner. You got to look at Stearns right away, and gone is Atkinson at quarterback. But Stearns has always kind of been that tough-nosed team. They definitely have that kind of Millinocket grit to them, as I kind of like to liken it to. And I don't see them really having as much of a downslide as maybe some other teams do when they lose a key component, just because they all function amazingly well. It's 1A is down, 1B hops in.
Yeah, they definitely should be right in the mix. And as Dexter and Bucksport should be right in the mix also. And those 4 teams right there should be tough. And we don't know a lot about Washington Academy, as they got a new coach, and we don't really know what to expect out of them. I don't think anybody's got a chance to see them in the preseason because they didn't play games. So kind of the first look will be when Dexter goes there on Friday night.
Yeah, they'll you want to, Washington Academy has kind of been a little bit up and down since they're coming into MPA, going from club into the MPA, then numbers kind of hitting them. They went back to club, then they returned back to the MPA under 8-man. And I strong teams across the board is a good thing, and I can only hope that with what Coach Granieri is able to do, seems like he's got a pretty good pedigree from coming from the area, so he's going to have a chance to put his footprint on a team that he can build from the ground up. And I want to see what he can do. He's definitely gonna have a slightly simpler schedule than maybe what might have been there from years in the past. Creative scheduling has kind of made it that way, so you don't have to just kind of go into the meat grinder right away. As I look at what they're going to have, granted, being out in a Washington County team, they're going to have their travel. But then again, I look at teams that they've got on their schedule. They've got Bucksport, very young team. They're going to have Mountain View coming off of a bye week at the end of September. I look at Booth Bay, they're going to have as well. And then they'll finish up the season on traveling up to the county to take on the Valley Mustangs.
Very interesting. Now let's move to the south. Is anybody going to compete with Old Archer this year?
Oh, that's Dean's figured out a system. He's got such an amazing coaching group. I went down to Old Orchard Beach on Friday to watch them play Camden Hills, and what his team was able to do with just his starters against Camden Hills starters was a thing of beauty. They held the Windjammers, a very tough, strong, big team, to basically 2 3-and-out situations in 8-man. And, that should say something right there. And this is an Old Orchard Beach team that is smaller but faster. And they're also younger, too. They've got a big focus on their team. Well, not big focus. They have no choice. Big focus on their juniors. And again, they're sophomores. They have had the luxury, because of how well coached they are, of how the talent they've had. They could liberally insert in these youngsters and get them some valuable varsity time. And situations that most teams don't have that luxury, just because it just hasn't worked out for them. And Wes Gallant playing at the quarterback, he's a senior this year, so he's going to be a big focus of that offense. But again, I wouldn't necessarily say that's all they're limited to, because they're going to be able to rotate people in. So that's kind of expelling on the virtues of how tough Old Orchard Beach is. I like Shakopee Valley, but again, when I looked at those teams and what happened when they got matched head to head, well, it kind of explained it all. I mean, one, you look at the regional finals, or Old Orchard Beach just crushed them 60-14. And then if I go back a little bit further, you go back into the regular season, and they beat them just the same, 52-14. So it definitely feels like Old Orchard Beach is so much farther ahead than their peers in the southern region. Although one team to keep an eye out on the build is Trape Academy. Trape Academy's got a strong senior class. Are they as good as the senior class of 2010 and 2011, the year that they were able to take Trape to the old Class C West regional final? I'm not sure if they're there yet, but they might be one of those teams that could potentially push Shakopee Valley for second place. I'm keeping an eye on them. Definitely are intriguing from everything that I'm reading about them.
Definitely great insight there on all the classes. You guys are the best. And to wrap things up tonight, I think we just want to kind of maybe just go whatever we want to talk about. Kind of to wrap things up. I want to say kudos to you, Andrew. We reference your stuff on when we broadcast games and stuff, but you definitely come up with a few new features this year. Maybe you could talk about those really quick. And just I mentioned to you, I think off the your audio kind of I like that. I kind of something you can kind of listen to in pieces. If you don't get a chance to listen all at once, and it's definitely I like that a lot because you can do it when you're driving if you want.
It's something that I wanted to try out this year. I wanted to try to expand my reach. I know a lot of folks look forward to kind of what I'm able to put out Sunday mornings for the standings and the scores updates. And I wanted to try something different because I wanted to kind of give a chance to explain things a little bit more, whereas my, social media posts really just kind of, it puts the information out there without context. And I'm hoping that's something on every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. that my main rankings review can kind of help explain things a little bit, provide some nuances that maybe just looking at the numbers doesn't really provide. So I definitely got a lot of great feedback with how well that went on Saturday. So I can't wait to unveil it this time with some numbers and standings and kind of see what people have to think from there.
Yeah. I know most people watching this probably know, but just tell everybody your site and Facebook page and whatnot.
Well, of course, if you want to visit my website, I'm located at www.mainhighschoolfootball.com. And then if you want to visit my Facebook page, you can do the exact same thing. Just type in Maine High School Football, and it'll take you right there. Just be careful for the scammers. My page is the only one. And if you need to type it out, www.facebook.com/Maine High School Football. Except no scammers on that one.
It's a great site. As we said, during football season, we use your page as a lot of reference for our broadcast. We do the same for Lucas's page during the basketball season. So, you kind of individually do a great job there, and appreciate that. But we'll get back in just a second. But we're going to go to Bob and kind of final thoughts for you, and and I think we all should touch on kind of a big loss in the high school football community that we had fairly recently, we talked off the air. I never got a chance to meet him, but you did. So maybe you could touch on his legacy.
Coach, well, obviously, two big losses there. Before we get to that, we want to do predictions, then we can talk about.
Sure. I'll why don't we do A first? We'll do. What do we want to do? We want to do North, South, and state champion.
Sure.
Okay. Well, Bob, you go first in A.
Class A North, I'm going to go with the Bengal Rams. And then Class A South, we'll go with Thornton Academy. State champion will be Thornton Academy. On the stay on the every other year.
I'm going to go with Portland in the North, Thornton in the South, and Thornton state champions. What about you, Andrew?
I'm going to have to agree with you on this one, Mark. I'm seeing Portland going back to the state as well. I'm seeing Thornton Academy going back to state as well. First time in Class A that you've had the same teams playing for 3 straight years. But, in keeping with that motive that I kind of noted earlier, I think this will be Thornton Academy's year to win.
Okay, I'll start in Class B. We're going to go with Lawrence in the north. We'll go with Falmouth in the south and Falmouth the state champions. What about you, Andrew?
The North is just seeming like it's going to be such a, an interesting battle. Coney looks good. They've looked good to start every year. They just kind of, Lawrence gets better and better the season goes on. And I think last year I went with Coney. Coney, they ended up falling up against, Falmouth just kind of came from where they did. This time around, they're gone. Nothing against Freiburg Academy. I'm liking what I'm seeing, but this time around, I'm going Lawrence as well for that. And then I look at the South, and I'm not going to let Spencer Emerson surprise me this year. I'm going Falmouth as well, and it'll be good to see. From what I've heard, Falmouth may have more talent than last year, if that's possible. So I think Navigators winning out of B.
I don't know if that's good, Andrew. We both agreed on both A and B so far. What about you, Bob?
North, I'm going to go with Coney Rams, senior quarterback in Parker Warren. I think they're finally going to get over the top this year. And in the South, I like Falmouth, and I'm going to make it a trifecta with the three of us. We're going to go with the Navigators to beat Coney in the state final.
Okay. See, why don't we start with you this time, Andrew?
If I look at C, the fact that there's no North and South means that the top two teams should, in theory, make it to the state championship. Whether that's the case or not remains to be seen. Again, I'm not going to let Swells surprise me. 2 years ago, I figured that it was Foxcroft's Academy, and a Warriors second half for all of history taught me wrong, and I'm still smarting from that mistake. So I see them as one of the contenders. And then I look at it and I like Greeley to the point that I think they're going to surprise some people in ways that teams may not be prepared for. So I'm seeing those two. I'm seeing two Southern teams in C. And when it comes to state, I think that it's going to be close, but I think in the end it'll be a Wells victory.
Bob, what about you in C?
Yeah, Class C is so wide open this year, and I got to go back to Levitt. They had a down year by their standards last year. I think they bounced back. I'm going to go with Levitt to win it over the Herman Hawks.
Okay, and I am going to go with Wells winning it in Class C. We'll move on to D now, and Bob, why don't you start off? North-South winner and the state champion.
The North, I'm going to go with John Bapst, veteran team, execute the triple option really well. And I'm going to go with Winthrop Monmouth in the South and state championship. Kind of a common theme here, but I'm going to go a lot of speed for Winthrop Monmouth. I'm going to pick Winthrop Monmouth to be the Class D state champions.
Okay, I'm going to go Norcook in the North. And I'm going to go Winthrop Monmouth in the South with Winthrop Monmouth winning the state championship. What about you, Andrew?
John Bapst has kind of been on that team on the bill, but come playoff time, having a strong, reliable, steady ground game that can fight on through all the elements is key. In that way, in that regard, I look at Winslow being the team to advance out of the North. Out of the South, I see Winthrop Monmouth, and I guess we'll call it a sweep. I, too, am picking Winthrop Monmouth to win D.
Yeah, we're agreeing way too much. Either we're going to be look good or we're going to look no much. But we're going to go to 8 million large now. I can start it off. We'll go with Camden Hills and Mount Ararat, and Hills is the winner. Well, you, Andrew.
I agree. I think this is finally that year that Camden Hills goes to their first ever football state championship. They're going to be healthy. They're going to be tough, and that'll be their chance. I think Cape Elizabeth may shock, and they may give the Eagles out of Mount Ararat a battle, but I think in the end, the Eagles are just going to be a bit too much. They're going to turn it on in the second half. However, come state time, they're going to be playing at Auburn at the new artificial turf field there on the new Edward Little campus, which I think is going to help favor some big tough battles on the line. And in that regard, I think the Windjammers are going to shock. I think they're going to win their state title.
There you go. Wait, we agree a lot, Andrew. Bob?
We do agree a lot. I'm going to go in the north, Camden Hills. I'm going to go Cape Elizabeth in the south. A lot of teams first year coming down from 11-man to 8-man typically do very well. I'm going to take Cape Elizabeth in the south. And then the state champion, we'll go with the Windjammers Camden Hills.
Okay. 8-man small. I'll start with somebody. I started last time. You start off with this one?
I think we're going to have a rematch of last year's state final, and same result, Old Orchard Beach over Stearns.
Andrew?
I can give a long, drawn-out speech about how I think Orono is going to fight Stearns, and I think Shakopee Valley is going to surprise. But at the end of the day, I'm inclined to agree with Bob. Stearns comes out of the north. Old Orchard Beach comes out of the south. Fly, seagulls, fly.
Yeah, I'm going to go state champion, but I'm going to go with them over Dexter, and Old Orchard's not going to have many close games this season. So go Old Orchard over Dexter in the state championship. Those are our predictions. We agree on most of it. We agree on there. So pretty impressive. Now we can wrap it up. Bob, we can start with you here, and just to kind of final thoughts on anything you want to talk about.
Yeah, again, we were alluding to this a little bit earlier, but obviously over the summer we lost a couple of real icons. Joel Sankey, been at coach at Bucksport for many, many years, and then of course the coach John Wolfgram too, who didn't know. I probably know Coach Sankey better than I did Coach Wolfgram. Met Coach Wolfgram on a couple of occasions, but I think the one word that, well, there's a lot of things you can say about John Wolfgram, but I think number one word that comes to mind is class. John Wolfram was always in control of his emotions. He never saw a number of his games over the years because, again, I enjoy watching excellence. So I'll go to watch whatever, good football is being played. And he certainly had a lot of great teams. First time I saw his teams play was when he was coaching at South Portland. I'm too young for remember the Gardner days, but so, you watched his teams at South Portland, you watched his teams at Chevrolet, and they all basically were mirror images of each other. Very fundamentally sound, built on a strong running game, good line play. Teams were always very disciplined, never beat themselves. But thing that people commented about Coach Wolfgram is that he was as good, if not a better classroom teacher than he was a football coach. And that's, he didn't short circuit things in the classroom. He taught English, very, very smart, very articulate man. First time I met John Wolfgram was at the state championship game 2007. Gardner was playing Mountain Valley. So I'm sitting probably 3 rows from the back at Fitzpatrick Stadium. So sitting behind me is Rob Munzing, who was Coach Wolfgram's assistant at Gardner, later took over as head coach, and John Wolfgram. So I didn't talk much that night. I'm smart enough to know when I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and obviously, so I basically just sat and listened the whole night. But Coach Wolfgram got up and went to the concession stand, and Rob Munzing turned to me, and this was a year that he had just coached at Chevrolet. I think it might have been maybe his first or second year at Chevrolet. And Rob Munzing turns to me, he says, 4 years, Bob, he's going to win a state championship. Flash forward to 2010, he won his first state championship at Chevrolet. So that's just what he did as a coach. But I think, the class that he showed, he wasn't a screamer, he wasn't a hollerer, but he had a way of getting his point across. And, the guy just commanded respect, and obviously a big loss to the Maine high school football community.
Yeah, definitely. Well said, Bob, and definitely echo sentiments. Um, Andrew, final thoughts?
Just to kind of touch upon what Bob said, I mean, I don't have the longevity of following high school football like he does, or some of the people out there watching us. But I can echo everything that I've always read and heard about Coach Wolfgram was always class. Just an amazing individual. My last memory I have of you know Coach Wolfgram was the year that Chevrolet went to the state title, and he was serving as an assistant to Mike Vance, current coach now at Scarborough, and Coach Vance was kind of over on his side of the line, taking care of the players, doing all the pregame drills. And there was Coach Wolfram standing there at the 50-yard line, just watching intently, watching Waterville practice and practice and practice. He didn't say a word. He didn't flinch. He didn't move. He just so intently stared right at them. And it was just like one of those things where you want to kind of get into somebody's mind and saying, what are you thinking? What is running through your mind right now? How is it that you're focusing on this? And then of course, sure enough, come state championship time, once the game rolls around, what happens? Chevrolet completely dominates Waterville 56-0. And it was one of those things of like, it's watching a master craftsman at work, and it was one of those memories. I remember I posted it on my page, and fortunately somebody was out there able to take a picture of it, and it fortunately captured me in the background just looking at him, and just kind of reiterated that point of just, what, you want to wonder what, for special people, they're special because they do all the little things so great. And I may not have known the teacher, but everything that I've read about that is respectful. Everybody knew, he did all the things right, and he did all the things proper. And he is, if for any aspiring coaches out there, study him, hear the stories about him, and understand that, you don't have to be big, you don't have to be flashy, you don't have to be, giving great speeches all the time. You just need to do all the things right and all the things consistent. And I think that's to his, one of the things to his legacy.
Absolutely. I think, if I'm an administrator, if I'm an athletic administrator at school, I mean, he is the epitome of who you would want representing your, program, and just consummate teacher, consummate coach, and, just absolute professional all the way through.
Yeah.
And I didn't have
his loss will definitely be missed. That just goes without saying.
Yeah, and I don't have the
other time I met Coach Wolfgram, his son and daughter-in-law. This was many years ago. Might have probably 10, 12 years ago. I was running the Beach to Beacon road race down at Cape Elizabeth, and one of the first people I ran into at the finish line was John Wolfgram. So he didn't know me from Adam at all, but we just got talking football for about 20 minutes, and he could not have been more gracious and kind, and just great to talk to. So
yeah. And Coach Sankey, kind of my first year doing this, he was always, kind and there, if you want an interview, he was always right there, and he was always kind. So I didn't have the interactions with Coach Wolfram you guys had, but I did Coach Sankey, definitely memorable, and a kind of a Bucksport legend, that's for sure.
Well, certainly. And again, he certainly cut himself from the same cloth. Again, another excellent classroom teacher, taught history at Bucksport High School for many years, and also was served as an assistant coach at Bangor for a few years. I believe he was down at a Maritime Academy, did a stint down there as well on the coaching staff. So obviously two, legends, and just, both very class individuals that'll be missed sorely throughout their communities, and also the larger Maine high school football community.
Well, I want to wrap things up, and I want to thank you guys. Definitely preview. Also, thank you to Kyle Galan of Herman and Danny White of Foxcroft. He's seeing those teams on Friday, and appreciate them stopping by for a few minutes and kind of giving insight and of their teams, and kind their expectations this year. So, and thank you to you guys. You guys will both be very busy as we get going here this week. And again, we will have Mackinac Cook Dexter boys soccer on Thursday afternoon 4, and then the Herman Foxcroft, the big game from Friday night. Andrew, you'll be all over everything. You'll be all over the internet. Will be following what you're doing. Bob, you said you'll be in Bangor and Madomic Valley on Saturday, right?
Yeah, and then Thursday night, Madison John Babst at UMaine. So I'll be on the public address mic up there Thursday night, and then over at Cameron Stadium for the Bangor game with Deering on Friday night.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys. Thank you to both of you. And next year, same time, same place. And hey, never know. Maybe we can get in a postseason before that. Maybe no promises, but this was fun. So we're gonna sign off for now. And thank you for listening. And stay with us. And remember, all our broadcasts are on Facebook, YouTube, X, and our website at easternmainsports.com. Sign off for now. Good night.
All right.